Another reason why I left church, fundamentalism, Christianity, and religion is that the church teaches its members that mental health issues are stigmatized. So last time we talked about how churches consistently erase mental illness, view natural and normal things as mental illness, like the trans community, the gay community, any community that isn't white, straight, and cis. Organized religion views as unnatural. Now we're going to talk about how churches create an environment that makes it very difficult and hard for people who need help to ask for help or to go against their beliefs to find answers. I grew up in an environment in fundamentalist Baptist churches where my family still believes to this day, and I quote my own sister, "I will never receive therapy because it's a gateway to the demonic." We have the most advanced medical research done in the past that proves that psychological and psychiatric assistance is 99% more effective than any belief system or prayer. And yet we have religious fundamentalists that instead of getting help and insulin injections or life-saving treatment, they would rather pray, and then they get arrested and convicted of child endangerment and manslaughter. My family does not believe in psychiatric or even the idea of visiting a therapist to help process trauma, mental illness, or to even have access to medically factual, life-saving information. So what if somebody has a mental illness through no fault of their own, who knows there's something wrong, they want help, they have an inkling or an idea that there's something wrong and that they need somebody who is a licensed, accredited doctor or somebody with training. What do? Well, sometimes they go look for it. Other times they go to spiritual leaders who meet the bare basics for state licensure to be a clinical counselor. And luckily I've never gone to a religious counselor. I've been to secular counselors. And there's a reason for that. I don't like religious counseling because counselors are not supposed to have an agenda. We're not supposed to create an environment that teaches people how to believe, what religion to follow, and what worldview they're required to have. I mean, if you're not a Christian, but you go to a Christian counselor, they're going to teach you and educate you in Christianity. That's just the way it works. And religious counseling has an agenda. Their beliefs come ahead and have more merit and weight than the ethics, rules, and factual information that you're required to study, you're tested, and you get licensed for. There are many Christian counselors that support conversion therapy, which has been medically and factually debunked and is illegal in almost half of the U.S. states for anyone under 18. If a scientifically backed up factual info violates or doesn't adhere or align with religious beliefs, I'm pretty sure the therapist, if they're a religious counselor, is not going to tell someone to do something, even if it's healthy, that goes against their beliefs. And one of the biggest reasons why I don't like religious counseling is if you are in a domestic violence situation. I've known many people trying to leave a violent situation who went to a pastor for spiritual counseling, and there was very little discussed about leaving, divorcing, and protecting themselves and their kids. Because the idea of religious counseling is to reconcile you with your spouse. And this can be extremely dangerous and in some ways can be unethical. If you know that somebody's spouse is violent and has previously shown behavior that is violent, you cannot uphold the laws and ethics of the medical license you practice under by suggesting someone to return home or to reconcile with an abusive partner, even though that's very stereotypical of religious counseling. Because there's nothing more shameful in a lot of fundamentalist circles than divorce. This is why people like Anna Duggar has never left Josh, even though he's in federal prison. Religious people in fundamentalist churches have the belief system where divorce is not an option. And if physical abuse is not enough to get a pastor to plead a woman to escape and never return, how can we rely on a system that barely views physical abuse as a divorce option in church, let alone verbal abuse? I don't like combining religion, beliefs, with medical assistance, which is why when I practice on people, I never bring up politics, religion, or the weather. Because I don't have an agenda. I have treatment goals for my patients. What if the therapist's beliefs concerning their religious beliefs differ from how a therapist interacts with a patient? What if the beliefs of the therapist go completely against the medical information that they've taught? What if the therapist has gone to a school that doesn't follow the script of modern psychology? And yes, there are religious schools out there that teach psychology, but from the information I've received taking classes with psych professors, most pastors have barely taken any psych classes at all. Their majors and minors are in biblical or required subjects. Most pastors, unless they have a PhD or a master's in psychology, are very limited in their knowledge of psychology. So you could be going to see a pastor who's a counselor, not a psychologist, a counselor, who has taken one class in psychology, maybe Psych 101. Is that the kind of person you really want rummaging around in your head? That's why I always tell people, if you want to go and see a shrink, that's great. Go to someone who has a minimum of a master's degree. Better yet, a PhD in psych. Do not go to someone who may be a doctor of theology, but has little to no training in psychology or counseling. And yes, there are pastors out there that have degrees in psychology, like Dr. James Dobson. I would not recommend him since he wrote books about beating your kids, and he recently died. Go and see a shrink who has a master's or PhD in accredited psychology. They must have a diploma in psychology. They need to have majored or minored in psychology in college and have gotten a master's degree at the bare minimum. You need someone who has had extensive training in the human mind. Someone who has interned with the best of the best. People who have been selected and acknowledged as having the backing, education, and experience to counsel people. That's why I don't believe that combining beliefs and counseling is ever a wise decision. If your counselor's beliefs differ from what the medical and psychiatric board of medicine say is appropriate information to include in your sessions, who and what do you think the counselor is probably going to do? Biblical counseling can be a legitimate thing if the person has a master's or a doctorate degree in psychology.